So I'm Kawena Charlot, the director and teacher at the Intuitive Path Academy, and this is Brook, one of my fantastic recent graduate students. And we're going to chat today about her adventure and her journey. Hi, Brook.
Hi, it's good to see you.
You too. So to start, tell us about where you were when you started taking classes. What inspired you to take that leap?
Oh,
It's kind of
man.
a big leap, right? To go, oh, I'm going to go to a psychic school. Like, it's not your it's not people's usual first stop on their journey.
No. But over the years and since I was little, I was always kind of an intuitive kid and knew that there was more to the picture than was right in front of me. And so over the years, I would be like, oh, psychics for dummies, or like try to get these random books, be like, I want to be psychic, And so that was always kind of in the background, but never like a driving force of anything.
Yeah.
And at one point in my life, I started seeing a nutritionist, and I connected to her energetically, but didn't know what I was doing. I was like, oh, I can feel that shift when you're talking about this. And she's like, and she was one of your students. And so that's what kind of guided me into the fact that there was any sort of psychic school, which once I learned that, I was like, I think I've spent my whole life waiting for this opportunity to come up.
Yeah.
And at that point in my life, I knew I needed some tools, but I didn't know what they were. And I was just in a really raw place of like, I want to learn my purpose. I want to work on my experience in the world. And I want to ground myself into feeling more grounded. At that time in my life, I was going through a big transition emotionally and needed that grounding, but didn't know it in that way. So once the idea of psychic school was a thing in existence, I think I went to a reading within a week.
Okay.
Yeah, and within that week,
one of the student readings, or to one
was
with
a student reading.
Okay.
And it was less than a month later that the meditation class was starting. And before I even knew what the meditation class was, when they're like, you should take this, I'm like, done and done. Where do I sign up?
Okay.
So I think it was like one of those intuitive decisions before I even really knew what I was getting into. I just knew it was right.
Yeah. And what did you, where were you when you energetically, now that you can kind of look back and see what was happening with you, where would you describe yourself when you started the meditation, and where would you describe yourself when you got out of it?
Oh, man. I was all over the place. Like, I don't know, like a Jackson Pollock painting.
Okay.
Splatters are on the wall. And on some level, I knew that, but not on a conscious level. And then and this was, I think 4 years ago when I started the whole journey and took, from that reading until now.
Yeah.
And so it started from Jackson Pollock painting.
So what did that look emotionally? Just so that.
Emotionally, that looked like a lot of anxiety.
Uh-huh.
It looked like, I'm a crier anyway, but it looked like just a lot of crying and a lot of depression. I went through big cycles of depression that would last months.
Yeah.
And not being able to focus on literally anything. So it would just perpetuate those mental health cycles. And now where I'm at, like, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
Not to say that like the depression or anxiety is gone, but I use the tools to ground myself in my body to where it's not out of control.
Yeah.
My emotions are balanced. Like if there's something that is sad, like I appropriately feel sad and move forward.
Yeah.
Things like that. Does that answer that question?
Yeah. Now, did you feel between the meditation class and you decided to take the clairvoyant, what was that? How did the clairvoyant class build on the meditation tools? Like when you finished meditation, where were you at? Kind of going, oh, I'm starting to see stuff around me, or I'm starting to kind of understand my emotions or other people. Like what was happening with you? Because different people have different kind of experiences when they end that and then decide to do the next one.
Right. The biggest thing that I got from meditation that like I wanted more of was the fact that I could sort my feelings and my experience from that of other people.
Yeah.
It's very absorbent. And one of the things in the reading was they're like, you're holding on to everybody's emotions and that's causing chaos in your life. And like, ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
Yeah.
So once I had that taste and that little bit of separation of being in my body and feeling what's mine and what's not, I'm like, I want and need more of this. And I know that this is going to be a key to what I want my future to look like.
Yeah.
Does that answer that question?
Yeah. That's awesome.
And then, you know, once you get into the clairvoyant program, not only do you hone in on that even more, like it expands on that.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that journey like for you with the clairvoyant program? Like, where did you start with that and where do you feel like you ended up?
I started with that. Oh, that's a tough question to try to not ramble about.
It's okay to ramble.
That's what I'm good at. I started with going into it. Like I just said, I wanted to expand more on what's mine and what's other people's, and then how to use that to be of service. And at that point in my life, I was very set on figuring out what my passion was and what I'm here to do as just a human, giving back to other humans, and as a profession and all of that. And I knew I wanted that in a big bundle. And so as I kind of continued to protect my energy, use the tools to be in my body and to maintain on a regular basis, they built on each other to like heal old stuff, heal anything that was blocking me, heal all sorts of stuff, which opened me up to that literally led me to my purpose.
Yeah.
So those were my main things. Is I wanted to feel okay mentally and emotionally. I wanted to not have chaos in my life in that area, and I wanted to figure out what my purpose was.
Okay. And do you feel like you got all that?
100%. There's no way. So there's no way that I could have done that without these things. And like, to say what my purpose was, like what I do now. At the time I worked in a restaurant and I wanted to travel. And so I did those things and I wanted that to lead to what my purpose was. And when I got back from traveling, I realized that I'm here to work with women having babies. And
so was it the traveling that helped you inspire that, or was it going to was it your sister's birth or somebody's birth, or I can't remember?
it was all the above. I was traveling indefinitely. I came back from traveling because my brother and his wife were having a baby.
Uh-huh.
And the entire time that I was traveling, I was using my tools that I learned in healing and meditation with intention to take the Claire program whenever it was that I came back. And so I got back, I attended that birth and used my tools in that birth. And that was what there was an epiphany, one of those cliche classic epiphanies, like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be here. There's something to this.
Yeah.
And this isn't like, I didn't grow up around babies. I didn't grow up anywhere near that environment.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just like, oh yeah, like it was literally inside of me, like, this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that was even a little bit after I started the Claire program. So then,
yeah, because I think you guys were already weren't you getting your Akashic Records keepers around that time? So you were like probably a quarter of the way in.
About a quarter. It was because that was in September. So yeah, a quarter of the way.
Yeah. I remember that was really close to that time.
It was crazy.
Yeah. I was so excited. You were so jazzed when you came in.
What was that?
You were so jazzed when you came in that day. You're like, oh my God, I know what I want to do.
I know. I'm like, I'm going to be a doula. I don't know what I'm going to do from here, but I know I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I said exactly that too.
Yeah. Yeah. So how have you used the tools in your, so you started off, you figured out what you wanted your passion to be. Yep. And then what was the rest? You still had a year and a half, a little plus, like what was the rest of that? So you figured out your passion and then the next step is a whole lot of other stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, from there, all the steps of like learning what to do as a doula, building a business and all that stuff, like I think directly coincided with all the tools that we learned.
Yeah.
Because, we learned our Akashic Records and then we learned how to deprogram and like all of these different things that essentially healed the energy that I carried from past lives doing this work, things blocking me in this life from doing this work, karmic agreements with people that I was interacting for this work.
Yeah.
And as I use those tools, bits of my puzzle just showed up. Like the training, I was literally going to jog in the woods and I stumbled upon a sign for doula training, you know, and that was about the same time as that. Yeah, I don't know. What was the rest of that question? Now I'm trying to go through the story and I'm like,
I know. No, the story's good because it grounds people, I think, and like, you know, they're because they don't know what all the tools are, and it's great because they can learn them. But hearing people's real life stories of like, oh, I learned this and then it led to that, and then it all built on each other. I think that's important because it's such a big, there's so many pieces of that training because we look at a lot of different psychic tools and we look at, you know, the astral, and we look at it's a huge metaphysical, healing, spiritual, psychic thing, and people want, that's why I'm doing these little talks with you guys, because people still want like encapsulate it in a 1 paragraph sentence, and I'm like, it's so big. How do you encapsulate that? So I'm hoping that you guys chatting about your stories will kind of allow other people to go, oh, and plus everybody uses it differently. It's like, it is a language. So how did you learn French? Well, I learned French to start a business. How did you learn French? Well, I learned French to have fantastic romances. How did you learn? You know, it's a language that people can use in so many different ways too. Right. And it is so healing. So for you, you're like, I found my passion. I found what I want to do. I want to start doing this. How do I do it? And then I remember there was a lot of self-confidence.
I was just going to talk about that.
Okay.
So the biggest thing, you know, with another tool was our mock-up tool. So really like setting what it is that we want to do. And at that point I was just like, well, I want to be a doula and I want to learn how to do it. And those things literally fell into line in front of my feet. So it was about a month from that birth to the point where I was sitting in training.
Yeah.
So it was fast.
Yeah.
And I struggled with self-confidence because, like I mentioned before, I have no history in anything that has to do with any of this, except I photographed 2 births 10 years prior as a hobby.
Yeah.
And so when I was in this training, there were moms, there were therapists, chiropractors, midwives, all sorts of different people that had some familiarity with birth and babies and being pregnant. And I had zero. And when we were asked, like, what brought you here? My answer was, this was purely spiritually driven and intuitive. And then I would share my story. And that was empowering because like nobody else has that story.
No.
You know, and I'm like, well, I go to psychic school and I use my tools I set my intention to find my passion, and this is where I'm at. And, you know, what I was able to do with the confidence thing is like, I showed up, I was grounded without anxiety. I was able to heal anything that came up. So with like our roses tool and, you know, working through those pictures that come up, I was able to heal self-confidence, heal past life energy that would come up based on like experiences in the past.
Yeah.
And then I was able to set my space to feel confident and empowered and open to learning and to tap into wisdom that was already inside of me from other lifetimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of faith in that because I trust my tools and they always show themselves, but it's not like a math book where you solve a math problem. You know, you use your tools and then it takes some time to show up, and it shows up every time.
Is that your?
Yeah, I just need to close one window.
Sounds exciting.
There we go.
And then for those, for anyone listening to this who's wondering what pictures are, so pictures are, we call it mental image pictures, and pictures are, we all hold different events or thoughts or scenarios in our body, in our aura. And a big part of the healing when you're learning how to read is you have to release a lot of those pictures in order to see clairvoyantly. And then a lot of what we're healing is those mental image pictures, where we start going, oh, I want to create this. And then you see all of these thought patterns, programming images in your way. And then you start releasing that. It's like clearing out the fog to head in the direction that you want. So you're using all these psychic tools in order to create the life that you want. So you started and different people, everybody's so different. That's the fun thing about this. Like some people come with already knowing what their passion is. Like I had that whole period where I had doctors and engineers. They already had their passion, but they were like wanting to understand things in an energetic level more deeply. You were like, your class had that agreement where it was like, no, we want to find our passion. We want to find our goals. That was really a thing with your class. And it was so interesting because that you guys all kind of played off of each other. But even like Esther, like it's for her to go, I want to have a baby and I want to be married, and this is sort of going against the grain. A lot of people would really have a lot of judgment around that. And she, you're like, you don't want to be a high-powered CEO. No, she was like, I'm going against the grain. And she is such a nurturer and she's such a nurturer. All she wants to do is nurture, and she loves it, and it makes her so happy. And why not? If she has that and that's what she wants to do, so
that's like exactly what she's here to do.
Yeah. She loves it. Mm-hmm. So same with you. And then both of you are in the same class, and we did this in the middle of COVID where it was like the most intimate class ever in a way. It was such an intimate class. It was so much fun with you guys though. So you found out, this is my passion. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do this doula thing. I'm going to use all my tools in order to start creating that. And then you have like about a year left. So tell us about that.
Well, it was an interesting journey because in my work, like there aren't intuitive healer doulas.
Yeah.
And I know that and I have known, and I learned from all of this, that part of why I'm doing this work with birth is because I have these tools.
Yeah.
And these tools to heal a birth space or heal trauma or, whatever, and to nurture.
So women. Go into that a little bit. What does that mean when you're healing the birth space as an energetic healer and intuitive? What does that look like?
Well, what I tell clients, because they're like, what does that mean? I use the example of a hospital room. People give birth all over, but this is the easiest way. Hospital rooms are similar to hotel rooms. You're renting this space to have your baby for a long period of time with a lot of intensity. And nurses and providers are coming in and out, and they're constantly working with other people. And then a lot of babies have been born in this space. And all of the energy that people bring into that space kind of stays there. Mm-hmm. Different parts of that energy stays there. And then when somebody's giving birth and they're having an experience, it kind of, I don't know if this is the right word, but inflames the energy that's in there. Mm-hmm. And so what I do is I go and I clear that space and clear all of that energy that people leave in there and make a neutral space. Uh-huh. And then when I talk to my clients and say, like, what kind of energy do you want in your birth? Do you want it to be exciting and full of amusement and laughing and dancing and music? Or do you want it to be calming and grounding and quiet and warm and cozy? Like I'll say like a cat, like where a cat finds a place in the closet and it's dark. Yeah. Like, what do you want to feel? And so once I can clean that energy and clean that room and make it neutral, then I'm able to take the energy that they want and basically paint that room with that energy and ground that energy and put a little protection around it. So it's only their space.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference with the attitude, and the experience of bringing a child into this world, because it's only their experience, as opposed to like, what if there was a traumatic birth right before them?
Yeah. Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference. And even sometimes like, I had
what did you notice with the clients.
That's what I was just going to say. So there was a client one time who had a lot of anxiety around all sorts of different things. Yeah. And I met her in the room, and the room felt intense from multiple different directions. And so she wasn't progressing. And if she wasn't going to progress physically, that would lead to a cesarean, which she didn't want. So once I got there, I was able to do all that work because I've learned how to do it while I'm doing other things like multitasking. And within 2 hours, she was stagnated at a dilation of 4 centimeters, which may or may not mean something, but you need to get to 10 to have the baby. And within 2 hours, she had gotten to 10.
Yeah.
And she was no longer having anxiety attacks. She was enjoying her process, and she had had previous birth trauma at that point. So she went from totally scared, tightened up, not progressing, to open, feeling safe, having a healthy baby, you know. And I mean, there's no other way to explain that.
Yeah.
Other than knowing that, like, I went into a situation, I used the tools, and almost immediately something changed.
Yeah.
You know, and that makes a huge difference, especially in birth. And with birth, when we can heal the energy surrounding it, get neutral to different things, and just allow the energy of those people to exist, that makes a difference from that life coming into the planet and that life and how they interact in the world.
It's so huge. It's so huge. And you know how I always talk to you guys about how I like to think of you guys like little pebbles, like myself, like a little pebble, and it goes forward and ripples out. And it's like, okay, not that you guys need to go make your difference in the world, but I personally, yeah, I know. But that was like my goal when I started all this, is I didn't like where I saw things headed. And I thought, oh, I could be like a little pebble and I'll just send ripples out and I'll do what I can do. I can't heal everything, but I can do what I can do. So it's always so exciting for me to see you guys become your own little pebbles, putting ripples out and making the world a better place. And birth is such a huge thing. When people have a traumatic birth, they can carry the drama from that for their whole
lifetimes,
their whole lives, because their first entrance into the world can be scary, and that goes deep into their memory. That's a primal reaction, and they can view the world through that lens for the rest of their life if they don't go back and heal it. So you creating this amazing, safe, yummy, comfortable, intentional spiritual space, you probably bring in healing masters and psychic surgeons and use all of that too. So you're creating this really loving environment, healing the mom as you go, they go along, and the father. Probably now, do you heal everybody else in the room as well, or help them with their karma?
Not usually, but it is something that I would like to do as I go, now that I'm honing in on my practice.
Yeah.
And understanding and really having my workflow, because there's a lot of multitasking involved.
Yeah.
You know, and I've learned that in the Claire program. And now that I've finished, I get to like really put it into play. But that is something that I want to do. And especially with like home births and stuff now, I'm able to do karma and agreements with the provider team because I know who they are.
Yeah.
In hospitals, I can do it on the fly once I'm starting to do it on the fly.
Yeah.
But it's definitely making a difference with the home births.
Okay.
And you mentioned our healers and our psychic surgeon.
Yeah.
Like once the baby is born and mom, baby, and dad are right there, that little trifecta, they help me give a healing because there's already some natural trauma from coming out of a birth canal.
Yeah.
A lot. So I'm able to like use those tools. And a couple of times I have given healings to like the midwife or the provider because they're still working on the mom and they're still connected. But that's definitely those tools I'm getting to practice now more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting and it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. On a personal level, how have the Claire tools, like what do you use and how is that what was that journey like on a spiritual level and on a personal level as well?
I definitely, and I recommend this for anybody, like I meditate at least 22 is my magic number, at least 22 minutes a day, and use my tools. I don't know why 22, I just like it. But the tools that I use on a daily basis, should I name them?
Yeah, I mean, don't teach them, but yeah.
Okay. Like I use definitely my grounding cord. I am using my karma and agreements on a daily basis because I'm interacting with people differently. I'm always making sure to get in my head, and I'm blowing any pictures. I'm cleaning out my chakras at least a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
what else do I do? I have like a little routine. I use deprogramming a lot.
Yeah.
Often. And then I work with my Akashic record keeper to like go explore different energy that I've left behind or need often.
Yeah.
And I think I fairly regularly use the tool of going to the healing clinic.
Yeah.
Especially with clients.
Yeah.
But really, like, the main thing are the tools that like keep me in my body, keep me grounded, and removing any energy that's not mine on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I sleep better. I interact with people better. Like, even if I go like a day or two without meditating, I notice I'm more irritable. I'm more emotional. I'm more lethargic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But, and, you know, I'm exploring past lives. Probably, I would say a past life comes up on a daily basis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, because especially with birth work, I'll explore like, okay, I'm noticing this is coming up. Like, for example, what was I noticing? I was noticing resistance to a client coming up where I needed to do a healing, a remote healing from my home. And I just didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And so I was able to look up, like, that's a tool that we have where we can see where we're in resistance and getting neutral to different things. And I saw that I had resistance to her because some energy in a past life with something she was going through.
Yeah.
You know, so I was able to heal that and bring her karma and agreements into present time. And I set her space. Like, really, it was like setting her space for her home birth. I just didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. How often do you use the readings in your business and in your life?
Like direct readings versus healings?
Yeah. Just like, oh, I'm reading this, or, oh, let me look up that, or when should I do this? Or, you know, how often do you use that?
On a weekly basis.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes I'll just do the healings, like, especially if it's just my morning meditation. But if I have like extra time or like something is like almost, you can feel something nagging at you.
Yeah.
Like when you get really in tune and really grounded and in your body, like you can feel when something is, those pictures are lit up. That's how we go to it. Like you can feel it.
Yeah.
And so now that I have my more experience after practicing things for 2 years, I don't just heal it. I'm like, okay, I feel this one nagging over here. Like, let's look at it. I do that almost daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's this
constant, myself at least.
Yeah. So you're just in this constant healing, going deepening layers of the onion, just kind of raising your vibration and being on that journey. Yeah. It's so much more of a journey. Sometimes people want a destination, and I'm like, the journey is the destination. It's just constantly evolving. So you don't want to stop evolving. You don't want to be like, hey, that's it. I'm done. I'm done evolving. No. You would always keep doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting to hear. What was one of your favorite, as far as just exciting psychic stuff, what was one of your kind of favorite classes and
oh, man, I really
or your top three?
Okay. The first one that I remember feeling like really, really excited about was deprogramming. And that's not one of the like super magical ones, but for me, it was a game changer because I knew that, so like, you know, the world is influencing everything. Like this person's influencing that or whatever. Everything's influenced by something that's part of the human condition. And when we learned deprogramming, I was able to like see what patterns weren't mine.
Yeah.
Remove them.
Yeah.
And then feel empowered to know what patterns are mine.
Yeah.
And how I can work on them and fix them.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that goes back to the beginning of why I was looking for psychic support, was to figure out what the heck is mine in this life experience and what's not, because I'm all over the place and this is cool.
Yeah. And that's a pretty common, you're very empathic, and that's pretty common with empaths, is to not know what's going on with you and who, you know, what's mine, what's other people's, what's happening, what are my thoughts, people don't realize that's all, you know, that's all psychic ability. People can be so telepathic, they're hearing other people's thoughts, and then it becomes chaotic. Right. They can be so, and they can have so many spirits around them that are also yammering in their ear that that can also create a lot of like, what's what's my energy, what's not my energy. And then when you tap on, other people's emotions or feelings or, belief systems, you can just be like, people that are really
It's
psychic.
crazy.
It's crazy. They're like a little sponge and they're like, I don't know where I'm at. And then they and a lot of people turn to, try to numb themselves out so they don't have to feel all that stuff. Yeah.
That was my story. Like, I am almost 5 years sober, and I have almost 5 years of being in recovery. And I came across this stuff within 6 months of choosing that path. And so when I got here, I didn't numb out anymore. And I felt like an insane person, but knew I was okay. But I'm just like, I need something because this is too much.
Yeah.
And it just, right from the beginning, that first meditation class was just like, that there was no doubt in my mind that I will keep learning these things as long as there are things to learn. So clairvoyant for 2 years, sign me up.
Yeah.
Else sign me up.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really saved my life.
Yeah.
There's no way that I could have stayed sober if I didn't have these tools, because it was too much. And like you mentioned, with people hearing other thoughts or whatever, that was me. I didn't necessarily only hear them, I felt them.
Yeah.
I felt all of that stuff, and I didn't know that it wasn't mine or where the line was.
Yeah. So, and now that you do know where the line is, what does that feel like?
Empowering, like grounded. I mean, it's hard to really put it into words as specifically as it feels.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Especially now that I've worked on my tools and am now using my tools outside of the program. Like, I mean, I was always using them outside of the program, but the program is over.
Yeah.
Like the subtleties that I feel and know that I'm feeling I can't even tell you. Like, I still have a part-time job at a restaurant, and there are a lot of people coming in and out, especially going through this weird pandemic transition.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And when somebody walks into that restaurant, into my space, I feel the energy that they're bringing in, but I know it's so subtle, but I know, like, oh, I can interact with this person in this way, and I know it's not mine. It's so hard to explain, but that's a huge thing, because what people tell me now, especially in my birth work practice, it's like the presence that I bring just by being there is so comforting and so grounding and so safe.
Yeah.
And
well, because you as a healer have released so much energy that you're going to allow the whole energy of the vibration of the room and everybody in it will allow, it'll bring that higher vibration in, and then everybody else will be able to, like,
right. And
if that's what they're wanting, unless they're really wanting chaos. And then,
well, yeah. And then that's when you ground the room and then they leave.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things too. I used to play with that. Like a few years ago, I would just take public transit all over town. And in Portland, that can be a little chaotic sometimes.
Yeah.
So when we learned our little grounding tool, I would ground the bus when things were chaotic. And like within a stop or two, it was sometimes even mass exodus of like people just getting off the bus. And
how hilarious.
This is so much better.
Yeah, if people don't want to be grounded, they don't like being in a grounded area at all. That's hilarious to watch that. That's so funny. I want to hear about magical stories. Like, what, it could be a class too, but what was one of those psychic magical moments? It doesn't have to be like the crazy magical unicorn and fairy moments, but just what was something, that felt like, oh my God, I can't believe that this, it just felt magical.
The main, and I mentioned it before, I wanted to like bring up one that I didn't mention already, but it was the story of finding the doula training.
Yeah.
Can I tell the story?
Sure.
Okay. So the birth of my nephew just happened, and I had that very clear epiphany, like, oh my goodness, this is what I'm supposed to do. At that time, I thought it was the photography portion, because I'm also a birth photographer.
Yeah.
But at that time, the doula part hadn't come up yet. I didn't quite know what it was. But I knew that there was something in me, like helping her breathe and holding her leg and calming her down,
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about that, and the place where I go for a jog at that time was a nature park in Portland.
Yeah.
And I was walking there like I do every day. And I did a mock-up for, it was birth work for photography at the time, but I did a mock-up. And after I did that mock-up, a friend of mine had told me how his ex-wife wanted to be a doula. And I was like, what's a doula? So that happened. And then I'm going for that jog, and all of a sudden I see this sign that has the name of this company. And I'm like, it's called, should I say it? Does it matter?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay. It's called Mother Tree.
Uh-huh.
And so I just see a sign that says Mother Tree. I'm like, that's curious. So I go for my jog, and then I send it to that friend. I'm like, hey, I think maybe your wife or whatever wants this information. If she wants to be a doula, I'm like, maybe I should be a doula. And I'm like, ha 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 ha, blah, 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 blah. So I go on the website, and within a week, there was this little seminar where they're like, so you want to be a doula? And it was the free thing where you just show up.
Yep.
And they only do it once a year.
Yep.
And it was within a week.
Yep.
And then I went to that, and I just it lit up all that stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've done this before. I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And then the annual training, the one training they do a year, was in less than a month. And I was sitting in that seat, and what that experience was that I was getting such clear guided information before I even knew what the heck the information really was.
Well, you mocked it up.
Because I mocked it up.
You mocked it up. So you set your intention, you put it out there, you handed it to God. You're like, this is what I want. And then God's like, okay, here you go. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Because lots of people could have seen Mother Tree and just not even known it had anything to do with mothers. Maybe they were like, oh, that they could have thought it was, you could have thought that was all kinds of thing. Oh,
I'd never even noticed that sign before, and I'd passed it hundreds of times over the years. I never even saw it.
Yeah.
It's always been there.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. And there are, little stories and stuff like that too. But that one is the most magical, and the one that changed my life the most.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And then, little things like I mentioned on the bus, like that type of stuff's really magical to me. But I'm trying to think of other ones. It's always one of those things where I'm like, oh, I got to remember that story, and then I can't remember it.
Yeah. I know there's so many of them.
Yeah. Another one too is, I think that this will resonate with people, but it's kind of, you get all shy about it, but it's finding my partner, my life partner.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's huge.
It's big. And, I did a mock-up for that. And the cool thing about mock-ups, which it's essentially using psychic tools for intention setting. It's just intention setting times a million, and actually specifically getting designing what you want.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about that is that you can do specifics.
Yeah.
And so over the years, I would do a mock-up for finding my life partner, and then the mock-up would come in, and then I'd realize oh, this is great, and I think I need something a little different. And so I went through that process, and dating it gets exhausting. And then I let it go, and it just kind of, I don't know how to say it, but basically through mock-ups, I found my perfect life partner. And there's literally not a single thing that I would compromise about this human being.
Yeah.
It's every single thing that I want,
Yeah.
The emotional compatibility, the hobbies, all of that.
Yeah.
And I worked really hard with my psychic tools to find him.
Yeah.
And it's not like I created this guy in a garage, he already existed.
No. Yeah.
But the chances of me meeting him, I probably wouldn't have met him.
Yeah.
And the way that I met him was this is silly, but it was on Instagram. I admired his photography. There's no way that I would have ever crossed paths with him. And I don't even know how I ended up following him on Instagram. But again, it goes back to the psychic tools.
Yeah.
We do the tools, and then they come into play without us trying to control them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing with psychic tools is you can use your tools and turn it over to God or supreme being, however you want. And there's less human control and manipulation.
Yeah.
And that's huge for me because I'm a control freak. That's
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love to drink and numb out.
Yeah. 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 And that, yeah. Yeah, exactly. That was a huge thing. I'm very A-type. And for me, I was like, I felt I had more control once I had the psychic tools. I felt like there was a way for me to start creating what it is that I wanted, or there was a
Right.
way through things. As long as I was like, okay, I can take control by owning it, and that's a big part of what we learn is going,
Yeah.
okay, we're owning our lives. We're owning the outcomes. We are not victims. We are in control of our lives. Even if crap happens, then we have a way to navigate through it. And that's so huge, because especially right now when so many people are getting this message that they are that they don't have that, and that they just have to be stuck in this kind of accepting victim place and be angry all the time and lashing out at the rest of the world. It just is not a helpful place.
No.
And you're not going to create what you want in that state. Whereas if you do go, okay, I don't like this, I'm accepting it, I'm getting neutral to it, and then I'm going to, I'm going to navigate, and whatever tool I need to use, I'm going to navigate myself through this and out of it. Then you can turn, lemons into lemonade.
Yeah.
Pretty fast. And I've seen so many students do that over and over and over and over again, I just had to do that this COVID time. Like, oh, I don't want to pay rent on a location that I can't use.
Right.
Like, why am I going to do that? And then I made the home studio. Right. You guys had so much fun having classes in that big building.
It was not that I didn't love the old space, but like that was amazing.
Yeah.
At your home studio and having nature and stuff around.
Yeah. I have 3/4 of an acre and a stream, so it's kind of fun to sit back there with the redwoods and meditate outside with butterflies. And
I know, it was awesome.
Yeah. It was really magical. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm trying to think what else. What else? How is the clairvoyant, how's having clairvoyance and taking that journey started to shift your perception of the world too?
Mm-hmm. I'm a lot more open-minded of the world. To me, I mean, there's so much mystery just as it is. Yeah. But the more that I learn in the class, the more that you can see, this is hard to put into words, but like I see things with a more holistic approach. Because like I said, since I was little, I always knew that there was more going on than what's right in front of us. Mm-hmm. But like going to psychic school essentially isn't just about using the tools. It's about a more holistic understanding of like what exists, and like I've mentioned past lives and like, what's the word? Why am I when you leave your body to go travel?
Oh, astral,
like all the astral, the levels of the astral, and like just
and remote viewing and stuff like that.
And remote viewing and just understanding, like having a holistic understanding, and also being able to participate in things outside of that. That just resonated so much more with me and made more sense. Like, well, yeah, I'm learning this because this is how it exists, and I knew that. I just didn't have the right place to learn it. You don't teach that in school, but it just makes life more complete in the way that I can interact with it and the way that it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do. It was so exciting for me when it still is.
And me too. Every time something comes up or I need to use a tool, like it's so exciting. Like I'm getting chills thinking about it.
Yeah. It was like for me, just trading Hollywood for learning this stuff there's like no comparison. Mm-hmm. It was so interesting. It was like the earth realm where, you're like, oh, this is what is supposed to be really cool and magical, red carpets and lights and all this kind of crap, to this stuff, which was like, holy crap, this is so much more interesting. And just having these weird little miracles pop around you all the time.
All the time.
all the time. And then it's hard to like even remember them and then you take them for granted, which is a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Then you get mad when everything isn't the way you wanted it, which isn't always, that's the whole
Yep.
but to have that and to try to remember where you were at the beginning and go, oh my gosh, this is where I was out of control. I was this, I was depressed. I was there, wherever that was. And then go, oh, this is where I am. It's huge, and for me also just this whole the interdimensionality of everything.
Yes.
And the interplay of that.
Right. It just makes things make more sense.
Yeah.
And then to be able to play with it and interact and go and do and be and see.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to be able to do that? And the cool thing about being in the program and then, being able to do it on my own is like, you have that experience and the things that you see and interact with and learn how to do and go, like, it's the coolest, craziest thing when you're like, I'm seeing this and it's like, I know that I'm not making this up.
Yeah. Give me an example of that, if you don't mind, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. An example that comes up is when we were in class and we were learning to communicate with people that had passed, which was really a very important class for me because I had shortly before that experienced the death of somebody for the first time.
Yeah.
And I was reading a classmate and I knew nothing about his mom. His mom had passed or whatever you want to say. I knew nothing. Like I didn't get any information. And what I was sharing with him about basically was checking in. Where are you? What is your experience? How are you feeling? All this basic stuff with this person that died. And the way that I was telling him, the way that she looks, the environment that she's presenting to me and where she is, how she's talking, how she's dressed, the things that she's saying, like he was telling me like, oh my gosh, that's my mom. Like I didn't make that up. And when it was coming in, when the information was coming in, was one of the first times I noticed that I was knowing these things and saying these things before the thought was complete.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't have created it.
Yeah.
And so it comes in steps before it would take you to actually make something up.
Yeah.
But then when he was reading my friend and my friend that passed he looks like a wizard. And my classmate was describing that and describing the cadence and the things that he says and the weird stuff that he would say. I'm like, you can't make that up. You didn't know this person and I didn't tell this person.
Yeah.
And like, it still gives me chills to this day. Like there is no denying that those capabilities are inherently built into us as humans.
Yeah.
We just got to learn how to use them.
Yeah.
You're not going to go to school and learn that.
Well, some schools.
Well, you go to psychic school, but I mean like mainstream school.
No, they don't teach that stuff.
No. But the more that you learn those things and have those types of specific experiences, the more than it feels like math. Like you go to school and you learn that these equations do this. Mm-hmm. These things all do this. And it's always, you can do them. That's how it is learning these tools.
It is. Everybody can do them. They have to practice. They just have to do it. Everybody. I keep saying that people don't always believe me, but it is a human ability. We all have chakras. We all have a pineal gland. We all can do this. It's absolutely in our own grasp to be able to do all of these amazing things and see auras and interdimensionally travel and talk to the other side and read the energy that's being set and act on that and manipulate our energetic systems so that we can be in different states and kind of deal with things from those states and tap into God and go, hey, this is what I'm trying to create. Give me a hand. And it's, it's huge. And then you're just kind of going with the flow. You're also creating the flow, but you're going with it too,
Right.
instead of fighting against it. That was what was happening when you were first, and sometimes you need to shift some stuff in yourself before, it all can start flowing in. I remember you were like, when is this going to work? I'm like, it's going to come, just get neutral. And you healed that one last little thing. And then all of a sudden, wham, you've got more clients and you know what to do with them. It's really exciting.
I know. And it's cool too, like, we all have different talents in life and different things that we are naturally good at or drawn to, or, natural affinities. And it's the same thing with psychic work. So it was really cool to see, like with my classmates, like, this person is really good, naturally really strong with interacting with beings. This person is naturally really strong with healing. Like I'm really good with healing. Different things and looking at different ways to heal and like unique places that might need healing that we might not see right away. And this person might be really good at working with people on the other side, it was just, and this person's really good at seeing auras and seeing things, like seeing, me, I operate on what we call knowingness. And I feel it, like, just, I feel things so keenly that it almost is like I'm seeing it.
Well, I mean, that step, right? So it's the knowingness. It might, at this point, a lot of my readings are just knowingness, some people just know, but then they don't trust it. So they have to almost see clairvoyantly to get that confirmation and then almost get back to the knowingness where
that's what my experience was, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely happened. I know. I'm always like, I can get you guys up and running in a while. In terms of getting you to trust what you're seeing, that's a whole nother story.
And that's what doing the readings, like, part of the program is doing those student readings, like the one that I attended before I was a student. And those readings really help with building that confidence and transitioning from, like, having to see and slow things down to, like, a knowingness that has a flow that you trust. Because you can't, like, when somebody's like, oh my gosh, this is exactly da 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 da, like, you can't make that up. And that
you don't know who these people are. They're just
especially once we did it with COVID, it was over the phone. We didn't get to see them. We just their voice. We knew nothing about them but their voices.
And their name. That's it. Yeah.
And
you just found out their name 5 minutes before, so you didn't have to
go
Google it. I know they're always paranoid. Well, you're Googling it. Tell them, like,
I don't have time to do that. Nope, we're not giving that time. And that was a huge part of the program that was so helpful, is like consistently showing up to do those readings.
The people that can consistently show up are the ones that get the most out of it. It really makes a huge difference because you're raising your vibration, you're blowing through pictures every week, you're getting that confirmation.
And I've noticed, like, after completing the 2 years, I'm more prepared to do that on my own, like, as far as like cleaning out my energy every week, cleaning out my chakras and stuff. But, like, I was relying on that every week. Like, I was tired on the day that I would show up, and sometimes I'm like, I just want to go to sleep or whatever after work, but I would show up, and after doing that and then getting the healing and raising my vibration, like, holy cats, I loved it. I love it. It's so good. One of my favorite parts. And being able to just be with our classmates and having that community, because that's not a community that you can just, like, go to the coffee shop and find your local psychics to hang out with.
No, it's a pretty special community.
Or have that conversation like, oh man, you should have saw those pictures that I blew through the other day. Like,
Or I woke up and I saw this thing over my bed and holy crap, what do I do? Or what do you think it is? Or most people are too much fear. For me, that was a huge part, is like getting control of that interdimensional world. Like, ooh, that was big. That was big. Very cool. If you were going to share, if you were talking to somebody who was graduating from the meditation class, what would you say, like, your top things that you got out of the Clairvoyant program were? Like, what would you tell them? What would you say? Oh, this is what you're going to get. But this is what I got.
This might sound pretty basic, but it's really important to me, is like, just the biggest thing is a more grounded and focused existence in my life on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know, and it's way more than that. But I came in as chaos, emotional chaos.
Yeah.
And now I have control in my life. I get to be the designer of my life.
Yeah.
You know, and that's huge. Is I think that there's a lot of energy right now in general of like finding your purpose, wanting to have a purpose-driven life, knowing the steps to do that, and doing those steps regularly, instead of just sitting around either being a victim of your own circumstances and like, I want to be a doctor, but whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But now I get to be an active participant instead of like wandering around like not knowing what to do. Every single day, I use my tools to take steps forward in that, because I know action to take all the time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes wonderful sense.
And then another thing is like, it's freaking fun.
Yeah.
Like where else can you go to learn about other dimensions where it's normal, and other beings and aliens and all this type of stuff, and learning about psychic anatomy, you know, like it's fun school.
Yeah.
It's fun school. And that's, I think, really important too, because I know for me, and I think that this is common, is like, I didn't have fun for a really long time.
Yeah.
I didn't play. Oh, that was a big thing. Like the energy that comes with this school and the classes and integrating all the things that we learn is amusement and kindergarten and curiosity. And I didn't have that in my life at all. I took myself way too seriously. I took everything way too seriously, so much that it just sucked.
Yeah.
And now when that seeps back in, I have the tools to like bring in more amusement, bring in more curiosity, and more, like, we use a lot of kindergarten energy, which is like play. You know, and that's, it may not seem like huge because everybody's like, yeah, we want to play, but it's huge.
It's huge.
It's a huge game changer, and it's so high vibrational, and like bringing that energy, like I'll even bring that energy into, like I said, when I go and work at a restaurant.
Yeah.
And it's way more fun, and it's way more productive, and so important. And so I think that's important too.
So what was the difference from the meditation? Because you're taught, and I say that to the clerics a lot too, is that you guys, this is still about blowing roses. Don't dismiss those meditation tools. Like that's like where you learn how to add, subtract, and divide. Those, you use those, but you know, well, but the clairvoyant then just goes deeper, above and beyond. It's just deeper. It's deeper. It's like integrated so into your soul and who you are that 100%. It almost becomes unconscious.
Those tools you learn in meditation are the foundation to be able to guide you into learning these more advanced tools. And like those tools help you exist in a functional way. So then you can go in here and be like literally the architect of your life. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That makes fantastic sense.
Yeah.
That makes fantastic sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think we'll just kind of finish it up there. So is there any information you want to share with people about if they wanted to get a hold of you and have you be their intuitive doula? Like, how would people find you?
So you can find me. So the name of my practice is called Shakti Birthworks. You can find me at shaktibirthworks.com, and it's SHAKTI. It's the same name, Shakti Birthworks, at Instagram. And if you're a social media person, that's where you can go to see mostly my photography. But it gives you my information to contact me to have conversations about, I call it intuitive birth work. Because it's healing and it's energy work and all those things. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate that. You're awesome. So,
yeah, well, thank you for everything.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, I'm going to turn the recording off now, but thank you.
You're welcome.